Good evening, and welcome to Whiskey Wednesday. Joining me tonight as my special guest host is Mike Hylton. Mike and I are going to talk a little bit about Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules to Life. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ford, and this is Echelon Orchid.
Guess who's back?
Mr. Hylton.
Hello, Dr. Ford.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
So I understand you're drinking some Japanese single malt. Is it a single malt or is it a blend?
It is, I do know it's a small batch, and yes, it is Japanese.
Yep.
Delicious.
I myself am drinking the Lagavulin 16, nice heavily peated. Cheers, my friend. Glad you were able to join.
My pleasure. We always have great conversations.
Oh, always, all the way back from our days at Fixmo, over, and at that time we were both very much more so into beer. It's funny as I think that maybe it has to do with our income that we're bringing in, that we don't have to go and drink that, I don't know what it was back then, $5, $6, $7 beer, to where now we're kind of like, wow, this whiskey is really good, and it doesn't make me fat.
Right, and I went to the store to buy some, and he came back with two. He's like, "Which one would you like?" So I asked for Japanese whiskey. I said, "The better one." So, take it after you.
Yeah, you can essentially it's like 60 to 70 calories an ounce, right? And a 12-ounce beer, especially the kinds that we were drinking in terms of, our 300 to 400 calories a piece. And when you have 5 or 6 of those versus 5 or 6, glasses of whiskey, you're...
Well, and not to mention, craft brewing is, really, emerged on the scene. And there's a big difference between craft brewing and like a Miller Lite in terms of calories.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've recently finished reading one of Jordan Peterson's books, and it struck me as that while he doesn't talk quite a bit about like leadership, I think a lot of his principles relate quite well to leadership. And as we were talking in the pre-show, I think, like, to me, when I look at them, one of the ones that resonate the most with me is not to compare yourself to others, but compare yourself to who you were yesterday with where you want to be tomorrow. And I think that's extremely important because we're looking for period over period improvement, whatever that period might be. Maybe you want to judge yourself every month, every quarter, twice a year, annually, whatever it might be. But am I moving forward? Am I becoming better at whatever skill I'm trying to master?
That's exactly right. And you and I talked a little bit about this, I think, in one of our last recordings, maybe about a year ago. It is that continuous improvement of challenging yourself. And only you, personally, as each individual, do we know that we're performing at our best and challenging ourselves. And then at that moment, when we're challenging ourselves, that's when we're growing. And I think that is so important in leadership, because leadership involves self-leadership as well. You cannot lead others if you're not meeting your own objectives and goals in life.
Well, absolutely. And I think because one of the other things that Jordan talks about is, make sure you have friends around you that actually have your best interests in mind. And this, to me, kind of, correlates very much so with, our relationship, over the years. Iron strengthens iron, right?
Right.
I'm getting better and pushing you to get better. And in return, you're pushing me to get better. Not too long ago, you had chosen to do your MBA. And, you were one of the reasons like, oh, well, Mike's doing this. I can see why he wants to do it. I started evolving in my career. Like, I need to do this too. And many people were like, well, you already have a master's degree. You already have a doctorate. Yeah, but I've already done that. I need to be better. And you're doing this even more so again and doing a master's in law of some type, right? It's,
master's in legal studies, exactly.
legal studies, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason, because, you are looking to be better. And, it's not just your own desire, but it's the peers that that we have.
That is so important. I think one of the most important things is really having people around you who's optimistic. And I noticed in my 20s, I think a lot of people I would maybe hang out with were, kind of negative, and they would almost celebrate the sort of negative things in a way, like, oh, well, there was a breakup or whatever. And I like to maybe talk about, positive things about how are we each, meeting our goals. And as I sort of gotten older, that's who I find myself talking to most often is everyone's got goals, and let's celebrate those wins together. And that makes a big difference.
It really does. And I think, and it's funny because I didn't realize how intelligent Mike Tyson really is. He's got a podcast, and he's quite insightful. And he was talking with Ken Shamrock, and I didn't know a lot about Ken Shamrock's past. And so Ken Shamrock, for those who don't know, he is one of the original UFC fighters, but he was adopted. He was in a group home. He was a bad kid. But the part that they were talking about was when everything was going good, the amount of people that were around him. And when things started to go poorly and he could no longer do something, he's like, I loved these people. I bought their mom's things. And then things start to go bad and they disappear. Well, true friends stick with you through the peaks and the valleys of your life. They're there to always tell you the truth and to remind you of the times in which we're better. I tell this to people quite often. I have some pretty expensive whiskeys. And the only time I ever have them is when I did something really great or I had one of my worst days. Because when I had that worst day, I have some to remind myself I've had better days. And this too shall pass.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And it's nothing's in a straight line, nothing's in a straight path, and it does have a bit of grit and reliance on yourself to get past those days. And when you look at the most successful people in the world, they're not the ones with the highest IQ. Now, sometimes they might be. I'm not saying they're not, but it's usually the folks who are high IQ as well as grit, determination, and because you are going to have, just like what Mike Tyson always says, and he's famous for, is everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And then what is it that you do? Can you pick yourself back up and resume, your operational excellence? And you may have to adjust and move and do things differently. But most important thing is you have that network of friends and people who are on the same path that you're on.
Yeah, and I think that's a big reason why when I look at it as to why I am against the minimum wage, I'm against labor unions, because they, in many ways, they protect the underperformers at the expense of those that are performing extremely well. It rewards longevity from a labor union perspective. They reward longevity over those that are bringing in the right skills. From a minimum wage perspective, I go, the solution to me is not let's increase the minimum wage. It is very much so in this case where I go, while we have equal opportunity in this country, that does not mean that we have equal outcome. But the issue where I see that there's a gap is that I want people to have equal access. And so if we take our public school systems, so you're in Northern Virginia, but I like to take, and I don't know all of the different schools in Northern Virginia, but I think there's a great example right in Maryland. And TK and I were talking about this the other day. PG County's on one side of the Beltway and Montgomery County's on the other. Both sides of Washington, D.C. School systems are completely, vastly different. And so how can we provide those young children with equal access to the technology and the learning? And now that won't get them equal outcome, but it certainly provides them an opportunity where their outcome could result in something that was greater than what their parents had. And then it's generation over generation.
That is the measure, I think, that we all strive for, is have the next generation to be better than off than we were. And it really is about access. But to play devil's advocate, I think there are folks who have gone to very well off schools and maybe did not come across some of the the hardships that maybe others in other schools would have to go through, and really challenge themselves to succeed when all odds are against them, and really just kind of push through. And I think sometimes a lot of people get a lot of coaching when they're younger and help, but when that goes away eventually, what then do they do? What then?
So I'm looking up right now because I'm reminded, as you said, that there is a movie about a University of Arkansas football player, and I'm trying to remember his name. Brandon Burlsworth. Okay, now Brandon was not a gifted athlete, and at least according to the film about Brandon, as he was in high school, his coach had him work. And he's like, this comes naturally to others. And he goes, but if you make it, you will have gained so much more because of the work you had to put in. Now, he eventually was a walk-on at University of Arkansas. Eventually, he did get a scholarship. And now there is a scholarship money, I believe, to all NCAA walk-on athletes, so to speak, that because he was the first at University of Arkansas. He got drafted by the Indianapolis Colts and died in a car crash on his way to visit his mom right after the first training camp. So he never actually got to play, but that aspect of what you reminded me, that his coach telling him, you will have gained so much more because of how hard you had to work for it. And in combination of that, I'm reminded of yoga. The person that can do that great pose and they can get that leg over their head, if they didn't work at that time, they received no benefit. Even though they could put their leg over the head, there was no stress. That person that's struggling gets 100% of the benefit, even if they don't have the right form. And I think that's in life. If we take that, you need that struggle. You need that the people around you that are going to push you to be better than what you were yesterday.
That's right. And we all know that diamonds are formed through pressure and stress, and that does happen. And to have the opportunity to make mistakes and to learn from those and take a little bit of risk, calculate a risk that makes sense, and immediately learn and provide and receive feedback on that is what it's all about. It really is. And just kind of give yourself permission to stretch a little bit and make that mistake. No one can learn by expecting perfection, because you would be doing the same thing that you've been doing from the very beginning and not changing. It's all about evolving.
Yeah, Lexus had a great tagline. I don't know if it's still their tagline or not, but they said they were always in the pursuit of excellence.
That's right.
Which is great. And this is, as we were talking about this as well, which is why I'm kind of against minimum wage and labor unions. Gets into Jordan's, rule number 2, which is treat yourself like you are someone you are responsible for helping, right? And there will be many because I have a faith that I believe in. People will say, well, that's not very Christian if you want the poor to suffer. No, I want you to first do everything you can to help yourself. And then, like, I am much more so in favor of filling in that gap. And that gap being, this is what a living wage should be. And the only thing I think Karl Marx got right, the only thing, which is he said was 100% employment is the goal, right? So if we can get everyone employed, even if that means they're not making 15 an hour, and let's say we decide that is the right number, for whatever reason it is, but that doesn't mean every job is worth 15 an hour. It would save us as a country in our tax dollars by going, well, they get 7 an hour, well, the federal government's going to chip in that 8 in some way, shape, or form for that company, because that job, truly is only worth 7 an hour, whatever it might be. Some jobs might be 13 an hour. And so, okay, well, we said 15, so that means I'm going to reimburse this company $2 an hour. And we saw this quite a bit, and so we know it can be done because it happened during COVID, where many companies were able to, because of the essential workers and things, that they were able to get help. So this can happen.
In a way, it already does happen, and it's been happening with subsidization of labor force, with the underemployed and somewhere where the minimum wage is not enough, they do receive food stamps. So it's, in a way, you're subsidizing it. I agree with you on the fuller employment. I don't know if 100%. I like that ideal. What I think,
I don't think it's achievable. I don't think we can have 100% employment.
Yeah, but what I like, or what it was when I was growing up, at least, was 15 and a half. You get a worker's permit. You work for 6 months, like I did as a bag boy outside loading groceries into people's cars. Then you move inside as a cashier, and then from there you go on. You don't work there for your entire life, and I think it's changed fundamentally. Where I'm seeing a lot of people stay, unfortunately, where they're at, and that is one of the things that the debate right now is like, is there a poverty trap where you're kind of stuck and you can't help yourself because that illusion, or maybe it's preventing you from moving up because you lose a lot of subsidies if you were to move up.
That's true. That's a shame, because they're not realizing that eventually they could make even more, or maybe they do, or maybe they don't realize it, and I'm not sure. Because I just don't believe there's many. I honestly just don't believe there's many people trying to game the systems, because anything that you're given for free, in essence, like if you feel it's free, you eventually don't value, and
right.
and I don't think so. I don't think there's a whole lot of people out there that are like that. What I do think in that, and this from both of us working for so many years in the cybersecurity, is that there's a lot of people out there that won't do the right thing.
Right.
And I think we have permitted too many people that aren't going to do the right thing to continue to succeed. And so if I force a $15 an hour minimum wage, these people, like Walmart, and we've already seen Walmart kind of do this, they just say, okay, well, you're only going to work 30 hours a week. I'm going to change your schedule in such a way to where, one, I don't have to give you benefits because you're not at 32 hours. I'm floating your schedule all over the place, so you really can't go and get another job.
Yeah.
And I'm hurting you. And there will be many companies that will do that. And that is not an individual trying to become better. It is a company that is saying, I'm not going to pay 15 an hour, and I don't want all the benefits.
So isn't that where sort of labor unions came in, maybe 80 years ago, formed to really help prevent abuses from employers?
Well, yeah, workplace conditions, be able to have negotiated wages, things like that. And I think in today's world, I think that they've kind of surpassed its usefulness, just because we have other agencies that are already kind of being a watchdog.
Right. We don't have any child labor anymore.
Right. And here's like a great example. And I'm sure there'll be people that are upset when I say this, but like the Chicago Teachers Union saying, we're just not going to go back to the schools. Well, you've been told it's time to come back because you don't feel it's safe doesn't the experts, because we all, it's very trendy right now to say that we're going to go by science. Well, the science says you're not getting COVID by going into the schools. You're getting them by going into big box stores, things of that nature, not by being in the school systems. So, and then they say, well, by going back to school, you're just being, you're being racist, you're being misogynistic. They're everything they can to not go back. Well, I'm glad. Well, they should be glad that I'm not in charge, because they're like, look, you need to report back on this day. If not, then you have abandoned your job.
Right, and they have a public duty to a certain extent to make sure they're providing what they have signed up for, and maybe there could be exceptions for some people who fit the category where they will be susceptible to it if they were to get COVID. But you're right, it is basically maybe taking advantage of a situation, and that's one thing that you mentioned earlier that I do think some people take shortcuts.
Oh yeah, of course they do.
And particularly in cybersecurity, they're there because for the wrong reasons, and they're only hurting themselves. So let's say if you're not challenging yourself and you're not really trying to improve yourself every day, well, guess what? You're actually going backwards. Mm-hmm. You're losing. There's no such thing as status quo or staying the same. You're actually probably just getting weaker, dumber by not challenging yourself, and it eventually catches up.
It does. You can't, if you're sitting in the middle of the river and you're choosing not to go anywhere, the river is going to force you to go in its direction. So you can either choose to continue to progress upstream like the salmon do. Like the salmon don't get next generations if they don't go upstream, right? They got to go against the current to make sure that the next generations live. We too have to continue doing that, because we are here in many ways to ensure that the next generations can be even more fruitful. And in order to do that, we've got to go upstream. We can't just go with the flow. If we do, we're never going to end up where we should.
And that's the beauty of it. With that analogy, it's what else is on this stream as I challenge myself and improve that
bears
I come across. Well, I think if you go downstream, you'll definitely hit the bears. But if you're improving yourself, maybe you're going into a better lake, a better body of water, and just fresher water, and it's better.
Hopefully,
yeah.
All right, and that's the goal. Which is, and this is kind of where, one of Jordan's other rules, which is pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient, right? You take those shortcuts, you're going to eventually fail because you took shortcuts.
And there's so many people in the cybersecurity industry, as you're probably aware of, who go out there, they'll take exams, but are they getting brain dumps? Or are they learning this stuff? And if you're getting a brain dump, I question, do you really want to be in the industry? Do you really enjoy it? Is this the right thing for you? Or if you enjoy this and you kind of see it as a hobby, like I do in a way, I just do all this stuff for fun and I enjoy learning it. A lot of the books and exams I've done, my degrees, I see it as naturally just very curious. And that's why I do it. And I actually really want to learn this stuff, not for anyone else, but for myself, because I'm curious.
Well, no, I think, yes, you're doing it for yourself, but it's much more than that, because you are also trying to make those around you better. So if you are not getting better, you feel like you are letting those around you down as well. So that aspect drives you in many ways.
Well, you know what? I would never, ever, ever want to squander, the hard work that I've put in prior, like 20 years ago. And I never expected necessarily to get to where I'm at now.
Actually, I don't think very many people did.
But but the thing is, it's like, I can't stop at this point. I wanted to continue, and that would be squandering what hard work I have put in previously.
How far out did you look, or do you still look, or did look, to where that goal needs to be? So, you know, as an example, I knew I wanted to get my doctorate. I knew I wanted to do so right after I finished my undergrad. And that was because of one of my undergrad professors, Dr. Nazer. You know, I got an A in only one of his classes. And I'm like, I don't quite, he always, all of my papers, he was very critical on it. So I just went to him one time, like, Dr. Nazer, like, what is actually wrong? And he goes, Mr. Ford, you have much more potential. Many of these students here, this is their end of their academics. This is the end. Like, they have to get this. I am treating you as if there's someone that is going to eventually be of significance. And in order to do that, I have to prepare you for that now. And I wonder if he had not done that, if I would be where I'm at today. Like when I look back at many of the professors I've had over my career, including, you know, high school, everything like that, like, he's the one that sticks out. And maybe because also the struggle he did, and it's so funny, his story, not funny, haha. He's Iranian. He was a part of the revolution in the, you know, like 1978, 1979, something like that. And he explained one day to me as we were having coffee after class that the Shah, or whatever it was called, not the Ayatollah, but the Shah, which was the person before the Ayatollah came into power, sent all of his generation to the finest schools all throughout Europe and America. And then we come back, and we've now had a taste of the West, and we want this here. So we start a revolution because we wanted change. But what we didn't realize is that everyone else wanted change also. They just wanted the change to be a religious government, not one for capitalism and innovation. So we were on that path, but because we were in the minority, that revolution we started had the negative effect. Yeah. And then many of us were exiled, you know, himself included, and can never go back, at least while the Ayatollah is still around.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Sometimes the change, you're going to get change, but it may not be the change you want if you're not very careful of understanding the people that you're around. And that gets into, like, one of Jordan's other rules, which we talk about quite a bit, which is, you know, active listening. But he says, you assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't.
That's right. Try
to learn from every interaction, even from those that have opposing views, which is why cancel culture is so detrimental to this. Because I just say, no, there's nothing I could learn from what you have to state, which by doing so, you have put yourself in an echo chamber, and you will not be able to grow past that echo chamber. You know, I'm neither Republican nor Democrat, right? I am neither. Depending on what the issue is, I am more conservative or liberal, depending on the issue.
That's a great way of looking at it. I personally, I'm centrist, and I think you're almost maybe saying centrist, but with like opposing perspectives. I'm thinking, where can I find unification? Because I naturally like to solve problems, and I think the biggest problem that we have facing us right now is that we see each other as, you know, opposites. And in reality, there's a lot more in common with all of us than we remember. I mean, it wasn't, you know, until like 2001 when everyone was just, you know, together, and we are very much, you know, the same. When I get to know people with opposing views that I think are maybe just very different than me, it turns out they're not. You know, they're very similar to all of us, and I think they just have a different perspective based on what they understand at that moment.
Right, and I think that when you don't leave yourself room for being wrong, then as a leader, you continue to double down on wrong data. And that is a disaster waiting to happen. I've seen too many CEOs do this because they had to be right and they could not leave any room for being wrong. And that causes companies to go out of business. And I think it's a shame because, as I continue to evolve myself, I am very much more leaning towards an anarcho-capitalist, self-sustaining communities that are all, so to speak, profiting from one another. I've got to get my community, as an example with the distillery, as we are, creating this, my wife and I had decided that we wanted to invest back into the communities in which we're looking for our products to be. And that meant education had to be at that. Now, there's a self-serving piece to this as well. I need all the communities to get good education so they can get good paying jobs so they can continue to buy, our spirits. Because I'm not looking to make, like my dad's favorite whiskey 10 High, which you can get like 2 gallons for $12. I'm not looking to.
Right. And you know what? In business school, I think a lot of people got it wrong when it came to who are the stakeholders of a company. Everyone thinks of the shareholders, the customers, but it's also the local environment and community. And they are a stakeholder because those are your people for resources, for human resources, as well as your customers, your supply chain, and you want to help sustain that. And you're part of it.
Right. And that's a big reason why I'm only, for the most part, I'm not 100%, but our grains are coming from Indiana. Our spring water is Indiana. Every supplier we can get, we're looking for it to be, Indiana. And then, help out those in Indiana. Now, eventually we'll expand beyond Indiana, but, it's an Indiana brand that we might sell in other states. And then we would still, wherever we're selling, our donations that we're looking to do, the charitable act would go there. And that's where that people think there's a big difference between anarchy and an anarchist. Even though they sound similar, they're not.
Enlighten me.
One is really looking for chaos, and the other is looking for a cycle. They're looking to make everyone around them better in that I'm producing a good that you need, and you're producing a good that the next other person needs, and it's that cycle. And we're keeping it, together. It's really much more about anti-big box stores.
Yeah.
And small business mindsets as to how you all can grow as communities.
Well, that's exactly right. So on the team level, there is an interdependency amongst each member for the shared success. That is the definition of a team. And you're starting to sort of expand that to the community and local community, which is fantastic, but also it's contrarian to traditional capitalism, which is I will buy from the industry the best product at the lowest price, and that is a little bit different, and it's in a sense because it could be difficult to sustain, but if you get it right, it's a pretty big deal, particularly now. It's a very common thing.
Well, right, and think about. This is why there has been a trend for so many years in Buy American, right? Having that brand, and it can't be. I believe people will pay a slight premium for American-made product,
right?
If it is equivalent quality.
Yeah.
Okay. The challenge that we've had here in the United States is that the price is at many times at a premium, but at a degraded quality. So,
Well, I agree, but you also have to define what exactly is Buy American, because you can have a supply chain
100%,
of
yeah, right, right. 100% agree. So one of the easy ways where we can see this when we take a look at the car market, now Ford and General Motors would like to say they have a luxury vehicle in Cadillac and Lincoln, but if you were to poll the world, they don't put either of those in that Mercedes BMW category. They put them in a kind of a mix. They don't consider them that, mainly because you're paying a premium price. The quality just is not there when it comes to Mercedes, BMW, Infiniti, Jaguar, Aston Martin. It's just not there.
I thought for sure you were talking about how there's Toyotas made in America and there's Fords made in Mexico, and more of the Toyotas are more American.
No, not so much
at
of
this
that.
point.
Just in terms of that perception, I think it's really at this day and age disingenuous for many companies to say that all their stuff is just made in America, because we are in a global market. We are all interdependent at this point.
That's absolutely right. So kind of going back to like your grains, it's where are those grains coming from? Are they getting their herbicide and everything else and seeds from locally sourced companies in the U.S. or are they doing something differently? It's hard to say.
Right, and that's why I'm saying that I can say that my suppliers are in Indiana. So I'm supporting other Indiana businesses with my aspect, and then hopefully people in Indiana will resonate with that because they're also Hoosiers, right? And so, I'm looking at trying that aspect of like, look, when you buy one of our products, we're buying it from another business, and essentially we $1 a bottle going to charity is roughly 12% revenue. It's 12% off the revenue, not the profit, the revenue, right? So big difference. That's a lot, when you start talking about it. But that's because I'm not. My goal is to not be Jim Beam. Jim Beam is mass produced, and they do make some. They make some quality products, just like some Jack Daniels make some quality products, not necessarily what you see directly in the liquor stores. They have other ones like, Gentleman Jack, from a Jack Daniels perspective, is actually, quite good, and fairly priced. Jim Beam has some ones that are like that as well. But, I'm looking, but I wouldn't consider, generic Jim Beam, which is where they make the most of their money. It's not top shelf. I mean, it's rail,
Right. So producing something, like a commodity like that and producing it, at a very, low margin but high volume is one tactic. I think you're right. You want to stand out, be unique, and it's going to be, lower production, higher margin, and you want to stand out. And I'm kind of thinking more back about your suppliers. Like typically when I work with, suppliers, and in a sense, we have expectations from each other. Basically, you help me out, you source from me, and maybe I'll source from you when it comes to it, or maybe we'll do, joint marketing. I'm just curious, like how does like the interdependency there sort of work as a team for you?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm certainly going to find out. Like so like when it comes to our distillery, the only thing that I can 100% guarantee is from Indiana is the spring water. Okay, so the grains, the seed, may not have originated from America, let alone Indiana, even though it's currently being grown in Indiana, and I'm buying it from a farmer in Indiana. But that doesn't mean that they originally sourced it. Like when they started this farm, where did they get those seeds? And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I can't say that the where I'm buying the bottles, that person.
That was my next
did the
question.
glass, did they blow the glass there or not? I don't necessarily know. So that's why I had to make a decision, which was I want to keep my suppliers to be in Indiana. Where they might go and get it, that's fine. Because while I'm absolutely looking to maximize profit, because you're in business for only one reason: shareholder value. That's it, right? So if that's the case, then I want to be able to maximize that. But I'm not looking to do that at the expense of the brand. And I think many people, companies, I should say, will do that. Such as, at one point, Walmart was not how they are today. They grew, and then they became this cutthroat. I'm going to put all these local small because I'm going to price you out of the market. I can beat you with my logistics. I can bully my suppliers. I can tell them how much I'm going to pay, and they're going to have to take it. If not, I can borrow them from all this, and who are they going to go to? Right? They took eventually a tactic that became, I think, anti with their original.
And I'll tell you what, I really like your perspective of, sourcing locally from the suppliers. Too often MBAs, as you've probably heard from Elon Musk, blame, all business as being too focused, being profit driven, and not enough on, other things like design or something tertiary to revenue and profit. So that is important. And I think that's great.
That's because Elon Musk is not willing to sit down and talk with you or I to change his mind, because he doesn't feel like it's worth his time, that he couldn't learn something from us, which goes against Jordan Peterson's rules.
Right. The thing is, both you and I have technical backgrounds and an MBA as well, and I don't think all MBAs are like that. So my point, though, is
not when you go to a top tier school, maybe like a real top tier school. Not like going to Stanford, which is what he's used to dealing with.
Yes, but here's the issue: is that I think a lot of companies go into business based on virtues, sort of like you're espousing, on doing the right thing for the local community, which everyone should, and they should always maintain that. But too often, what I think happens is they're faced with diminishing point of returns. And profit, maybe margins are not where they should be, and they just say, look, we got to do something here. And yeah, we're sourcing from local places, but at what cost? And I don't know if that happens, 10 months, 10 years, never. But I think places maybe like Walmart, as you're saying, they initially did not start out necessarily as cutthroat, but then you start running into thinner margins, and you have to make choices. Where do you generate growth? It's all about accelerating growth, the rate of growth, not necessarily just growth per se. For most part.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And this is where I've had to really think in terms of looking at my business plan. What is enough? Of course, I would love to be a billionaire. But that's not really my goal. My goal is that I'm looking to leave a lasting legacy of myself and of my family. So when people go back, they can go, hey, through the Fords and their particular charitable organizations allowed me to get to X. Right.
That's good.
It's and it's just the businesses that we are developing is just the medium in which I'm looking at leaving those legacies, for myself and my family. It's just the medium. It's not, the sole goal. It's the avenue in which I want to get there, because I truly believe in many cases that it's not because we don't have equal opportunity. It's because we don't have equal access. And how much better can we be as a society if those that, actually don't have to want for proper education because it's there, then how much better could they get because they had it? Like they don't have to go to the, I don't even, they don't have to go to the library to get internet access to where they can do their homeschooling, right?
Not only is that a great thing to do, but it's also for those people, but for society. Can you imagine if everyone was fully contributing to the maximum that they could in terms of access into education to compete and to contribute into society? And when you think at the macro level of economics, it's really about contributing into a national GDP and growing the economy together and achieving our goals. And I think more people participating fully to what they can do in the right place at the right time is what it's all about. And access to education is a big part of it.
I think it is. I mean, to me, in my mind, it is. If I don't know anyone that is highly intelligent that is not educated, but there are many people I know that are highly educated that are not intelligent. All right, it's about finding the proper mix of being able to have that education and being able to apply it. There are plenty of people that have gone to very many schools. They got all these certifications, but they can't apply. And if you can't apply, then it doesn't really matter.
I do know what you mean. You have to be able to take it, synthesize it, and execute with it. And if you don't, it's not going to help you.
No, it really won't. And I think that we have lost as a country that vision of hard work and grit to be able to get to the desired result. We have chosen to give everyone a trophy because we don't want people to feel bad. You know what? No, I have never, and I never will let any of my kids win at anything. Never.
Well, what if they actually did win?
Perfect. Good.
Okay.
They need to. They need to at a certain point.
Yeah.
Right? And they will. I know this. At a certain point, they will defeat me. Because they need to, because then I've done my job.
That's right.
Done my job as a parent because they have surpassed me, and I hope now I will keep, when they do, I'm gonna well, let's play again. Right? It's not okay, you did it once. Now, let's get I too want to get better. It should be that kind, but they should feel that defeat and know that they can get back up. They can learn from that defeat. Okay, well, what did you do wrong? Okay, well, try something different.
Right.
And I think that,
and that's why honesty is so important. It's anytime that there's a project, it doesn't go well, the worst thing that could happen is that it goes poorly and nothing is learned from it. So I think it's a coaching moment, and I encourage you to put it all out in the open and learning about it and discussing it, and that is how things get better.
Yeah, because I think this is a big thing in society, which is why, getting back to that, anarcho-capitalist viewpoint, which means you want a small federal government and you want to be more involved in your local and state. Because I think what people don't understand, and what's so dangerous about what's been going on over the last several years, is that anything the federal government finances today, they will control tomorrow.
Well, there is an expectation once money is out there that that is what's going to happen, and it's going to be there, and you just sort of follow money. I always say, you could
Look at the
tell.
education, Department of Education, Department of Transportation. Hey, if you don't do this, we're not going to give you the funds.
Well, you can look at the strategic strategy of a company based on how they set up their comp plans, and like that's what's important to them, and that's it. You know, it's the money.
Speaking of which, did you realize that Dr. Fauci is the highest paid federal government employee? Have you seen this?
Well, you know what? I'm glad it's not a football coach anymore. I thought it was California football coach at one point.
Well, no, I mean, not
But
taking
federal, yeah.
football. I mean, football. I mean, Nick Saban at the University of Alabama makes more than almost all. But in terms of an actual federal government employee,
Yeah.
he makes more than the president. Now, and I don't know if he's worth that or not. It's all of that's based on whatever the market will decide. I wonder if he could get that same amount by working somewhere else, because what's quite interesting, in looking at his background, and I have actually, to be honest, I haven't looked at just articles I've read, that he really isn't a virologist and a whatever disease expert. That wasn't his training, evidently. I don't know if that's true. Someone could fact check it, but I've just been, it's one of those things where, I mean, honestly, I don't care. All the people that want to, shit all over him, I think are just foolish. Like in the very beginning of COVID, he said one thing, and then he changed his mind because he had different data. And then he said, okay, this is what I believe now. He didn't double down on what he believed was a mistake, which we can really take as a leadership in that, don't do that. If you have new information, don't be afraid to make a new decision. And I would like to believe he was always doing so from a position of trying to do the right thing the right way. I don't want to, especially a doctor. I don't know, and I've met many medical doctors. I have never met one that does not take that their oath seriously.
Oath.
The Hippocratic Oath. I've never met one that doesn't take that seriously.
You know what? I could see he was just trying to stay political and be as factual as possible. And you know what? I wrote a paper in business school about CEO compensation, and I think I was the only one who was for CEO compensation to be the way it is. And similar to Dr. Fauci, you're a high visibility role. Any and every mistake that you make will be amplified and watched and reviewed. Unlike, being like in the middle of middle management, for example. So you could easily kind of go to another job if you made a mistake and had to leave or something like that. And it wouldn't be all over the news and recorded. This guy has a reputation now. If he does poorly, that will always follow him, and for that, there's a lot of pressure on him. And you know what? Like you explained to me,
him, anyone with his last name,
and anyone with Ouchie, as my son will call him, Dr. Ouchie, might also fall into that trap. Yeah,
it's true. It's true, and. I don't. When you're under that much of a microscope, which is why, I think you're absolutely right. The buck stops with the CEO, right? If the CEO can only go so far as to get rid of so many other COs that didn't understand his, weren't able to enact his strategic vision, to where eventually the board says maybe you're the problem. So therefore, that's why they're paid so well. Like, there's a big difference between the CEO and the CFO in terms of.
You're talking a little bit about branding. The CEO, for example, is a brand, and their leadership, just having that respect and commanding it, is there because people will follow. And there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes for CEOs to really perform as well as they do. It's like an athlete. A lot of training behind the scenes to be able to perform at that level. And we pay athletes very high levels of compensation. And I do see senior executives who are in the spotlight like they are as, like a performer, like an athlete is. And they're doing the same things. A lot of training, coaching behind the scenes. He probably has multiple coaches helping him and how to answer questions from the press, and things like that. And he does a lot of preparation beforehand.
Yeah. So, all right. So here's a question for you, Mike.
Oh,
Could Jamie Dimon be a successful CEO of Microsoft?
of Microsoft. So going over from J.P. Morgan Chase to
Yeah.
Microsoft. Oh, I see why you're asking this. I'm going to say there's two parts of this. It depends, as is always the right start.
Right. As we've learned throughout, no matter which topic.
And I'll tell you what, and the law school, it's the same thing. You always start off with it depends, because you can look up a statute and mean something completely different than you thought it was. But anyways, there's two parts to that to be a successful leader. One is can you gain the respect of your peers, subordinates, where they will listen to you. A law is a law because people, society put faith in that system and that law. And can Jimmy Dimon get that same faith from being a non-techie at a technical company? And by system two thinking, so there's the slow and the fast thinking, as the book will state, your initial reaction and then like your logical think through this with everything that you have. My system two's thinking is saying, I think he could. And the guy is charismatic. That's something that you can't necessarily find from everyone. I would say you don't necessarily have to be charismatic, but it helps. But if you're not charismatic, you better damn well be very technical or have some other skill that others will respect. I think he's navigated big challenging issues. He's been in the public eye for quite a bit. I think he's been very successful at J.P. Morgan Chase, and I don't see why not. Actually, I'd like to see it.
Yeah. I actually I agree with your. It depends. Okay.
And that's it.
Right. Outside of that, everything else you said was garbage. No, I'm just joking. So I think the real answer why it depends is, because he came out not too long ago saying that, the biggest threat to the traditional financial services companies like himself and other banks are from fintechs and tech companies, right? So if Microsoft all of a sudden chose that they also wanted to get into that financial services, then why would you not want to lure someone like Jamie Dimon away? Because you're going to be more than just a tech company. You're going to become that lifestyle company, which is where a lot of tech companies are trying to truly be.
Exactly.
To control your lifestyle, and that financial transactions is there. If Microsoft was going to become they're already kind of like a player in the market, but if they were going to go on a huge acquisition and divestiture aspect, where I'm going to get rid of business units that aren't performing, and I'm going to buy up companies that are underperforming that I know I can bring value to, I think Jamie Dimon can do very well in that because he understands the value creation.
I'll tell you what, Microsoft will have to reinvent itself continuously, as IBM has done over time, and it's not always easy. But there will be a point of diminishing returns once cloud and sort of AI kind of take off for them. What is our next venture? And you do need someone who's sort of taken this, monolithic bank and turn into this pervasive everywhere type of system. And I think that's what Microsoft needs. And, like your business where you're talking about sourcing ingredients and how to maintain profitability as you scale, there's horizontal integration, vertical integration, like you're saying. And Microsoft needs to probably do a little bit better job with that. They could be much more integrated than they are. And you might be thinking like they are, but it's just like the desktop site and the lifestyle, like with the car, remotes. There's a lot more that can happen there. I think that would be nice to see Jamie Dimon in there, and techie, take the company to new heights.
Yeah. Now, I'm not sure that he could. That's why I gave scenarios that he did.
Yeah.
Now, let's take the opposite. Could
Nadella.
It's Nadella. I don't know if it's Satya Nadella, but the CEO of Microsoft. Could he run J.P. Morgan Chase? I think The answer is yes, mainly because JP Morgan Chase needs to figure out how they're going to become more and more of an innovative technology company that delivers financial services. And so I think the opposite is much easier than it is for, like I don't have any reason to believe that Satya could not go do that. But I do have some things that would give me pause in that it depends. Like, how does Microsoft want to be? Do they want to do this and this? Well, then I could see Jamie Dimon easily doing it. The other, if not, he might struggle. But I don't think Elon Musk could run JP Morgan Chase, nor do I think Elon Musk could run Microsoft.
You know what? There's probably more of a cultural, dichotomy between, Elon Musk companies and the two other companies, J.P. Morgan Chase and Microsoft. It's these guys with Tesla are just, I don't know, just very high risk takers. Let's see what works. Maybe when we go on stage and throw a rock at our truck, hopefully it works. And it didn't. Those kind of stunts like that, you would not see something like that with J.P. Morgan Chase. It's a different kind of culture. I don't think Elon could do it. He's doing well where he's at. It's these high risk, and you do have to be a little bit. I'm not going to say crazy, but it's I can't think of a better word to think you could dramatically change the world as much as they're doing, and they are successful at it. It does take a little bit of that. The other two companies are much more conservative.
Yeah, and I'm not. I definitely. I look at how many of the Fortune 500 CEOs would do well taking them out of their current vertical and putting them in a different one. As a different example, and I don't know who the current CEO of Walmart is. I think Elon Musk could do quite well as a CEO of Walmart.
Yeah, why is that?
Supply chain and logistics. That's really all that is, and I think that's more of why
I
Elon
think
does
Walmart.
well.
Is that right? I don't know. I think Walmart has the best supply chain logistics in the world. Elon, I think he's done some vertical integration, and he acquired a company, and I think
Sure.
the production of was it Panasonic, and I don't know how well it's going to play out. I think the industry will catch up eventually on producing battery packs.
Well, I think Elon bet on the wrong battery. He should have gone hydrogen.
Yeah, that would have been something.
Yep, because
A huge leap.
it is, and it doesn't take anywhere near as much from the environment as lithium does. I think we're just from the batteries, we're just trading one type of environmental impact to another, whereas the byproduct of hydrogen is humidity.
and not to mention the scarcity of all the components that go into the batteries.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what the one metal was last week that just spiked.
Nickel,
The commodity.
nickel.
Cadmium, maybe?
Oh, cadmium. Okay,
yeah.
Yeah.
It just spiked up, and it's all because of lithium ion.
All eventually, and for the people, there's plenty of my MBA cohort mates that are like, no way, we won't even see hydrogen in our lifetime. I'm like, it's already quite proliferated in California. Okay, it's Toyota and Honda have bet on this. It's they've got the pool to make this happen throughout the United States. Like, don't count that out.
And I'll tell you, I got a note from my investment advisor today that they're saying they are seeing a very big shift away from oil producers, and they think the industry is going to consolidate even further, and is just going to be part of utility as well as other sort of types of energies, and it won't be sort of on its own. Like oil just will not be its own sort of industry. It's going to be all one big colossal sort of energy that includes everything, not just oil, going forward, because it's just going to shrink.
Well, it's going to have to at a certain point.
Yeah,
I think it just does. And speaking of utilities, how soon, if at all, will it be to where, at least in the United States, that internet is considered a public utility?
I'm surprised it's not already, meaning rural access, things like that, last mile, and places where it's not advantageous. You look at telephones, that was something that was put in place. No matter how far you were out, you could expect a phone line. You can't expect that here, and I'm a little bit surprised. I think it's right around the corner. I think the technology and the intersection of technology and public policy, and now that we're seeing COVID and at home schooling, it's right around the corner. It's got to be. Even if you're having to do microwave to last mile, to little receivers from an access point to do RJ45, it's going to happen soon.
I wonder with COVID, in addition to the aspect of with school, how many parents may wind up choosing to just do homeschooling and remove themselves from the public school system. I think that there is with the amount of teachers unions, because this is where the issue that I have with what the teachers unions are doing is that they've played both sides of the game here. They continue to pay basically and donate to different politicians, and then when those politicians are now in office and they're saying, okay, it's time to go back to the schools, they're like, no, we don't want to do that. And so now our tax dollars have been used twice against the American people. I don't think I personally do not believe any labor union should be able to donate to any political fund. They're typically the largest contributors in many ways. But the teachers unions, I think what will happen is you're going to see a lot of parents choose to withdraw their kids, create their own social groups so they can still have that interaction. And then, there will not be a need for as many public school educators. And that this very well might significantly hurt
public school.
Yeah.
I think you're probably right. I think going forward, there's going to be a lasting change with schooling, and it's probably going to be a lot more digitized, regardless, to give better access to high performing teachers, hopefully on merit and things like that. And it is definitely.
The thing that sucks about this is that the people that have suffered the most during COVID when it comes to schooling are unfortunately people of color that are in underserved communities, because they tend to have a disproportionate amount of a single parent, and that single parent can no longer drop their child or children off to school to go do their job. I think that it really hurts those that are already hurting.
I think at least in Virginia, the teachers are in this grouping of COVID vaccines. So I think that is an important thing, because we do want to get children back to school, teachers teaching again, and we want to free up so that working mother can go back to work.
Or father,
yeah. And it is a challenge, and it's a burden on everyone when we have to do homeschooling in a way for what teachers, public school teaching, was sort of expected to do. I would like to see, honestly, I think there's resources in many places, not everywhere, but maybe where the libraries are shut down, you can separate children in groups of like 6, and that's your pod, and you have like a digital screen and maybe a TA, and you have another room in the library with another set of 10 kids, and have some type of normalcy of children going back to school. It might not be their physical school, but maybe a county building. There's got to be resources somewhere that could be set up for that.
Absolutely, I think
to keep social distancing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's inevitable. Mainly because, as we're seeing, the current vaccine is not as effective against some of the new variants. Now, that doesn't mean they won't, that our vaccines won't adapt. I mean, it's a it's a first generation of it. So we know how good .0 releases are for anything. Doesn't matter if it's a vaccine or technology. As you don't want to be on that .0 release. So it's
Well,
better.
Going back to Jordan Peterson and 12 Rules for Life, being optimistic, I am extremely optimistic about the vaccine. One, yes, there are different variants, and that's causing a lot
When
of
do you plan
concern.
on taking it?
As soon as I possibly can. And the reason why, there is some protection. It may not be the 95%, 99, the 80, but if there's some protection against a variant, and if we know there are variants today, we do well know that it could emerge to be in a worse, lethal variant in the future. And that's just naturally sort of how this could happen. And I'd like to have some protection against it. And I'll tell you, Moderna, they're already coming out with a booster vaccine for the South African variant. And they were able to come up with that rapidly, just from that emerging just over maybe a
The
month
framework
ago.
they've got in place now for these vaccines, but
look at Merck.
Showing it's accessible.
So Moderna is sort of like this small, no-name company like a year ago, and then you have Merck, who was working on 2 vaccine potentials and completely missed it. So it's fascinating to me that happened, and I think that is way of small companies like even like your whiskey company that you're working on that could really innovate and shift the way that how things are working today.
Yeah, I've thought about the vaccine quite a bit, and for myself, I will wait for a while. Not mainly not because I'm anti the vaccine or anything along those lines, but because I believe there are so many more people that need it before I do. I'm not in any. I've got O negative blood, so all the research basically saying that, hey, you already have some natural immunity to this. However true, that's what the statistics seem to be indicating. I'm in good health. I don't have any pre-existing conditions that would make me higher at risk. I definitely social distance. As a matter of fact, my chiropractor was diagnosed with COVID. I wore a mask all the time while seeing him, and I did not get it. So for all those people that are out there going, oh, the masks are not effective, it's at least a little bit effective because this guy was in my face. I saw him 3 times that week, and I didn't get it. He did.
Well, all right. So I had COVID over the summer, and so did my family, and it was not necessarily the COVID itself that was a catastrophe. It was everything around it about just getting a support from medical doctors, just get a test to get any kind of treatment. I was actually given advice that says, well, if you have difficulty breathing, do something. That was sort of the intent or the everything that was said about what I could do to treat myself if I had any difficulty. And I think that's still sort of the case now today. I don't think it's much better. I think maybe the hospitals are getting overwhelmed. And I'm not going to cut in line or anything like that to get vaccinated, but when doses become available, I want to sort of reduce, exposing others by helping achieve that herd immunity about it. And it's part of what I think we'll look back in history and think, wow, did they really not trust a vaccine after all those years of development? I know it's RNA and things like that. It's a little bit different, but there are RNA vaccines out there. This stuff is well researched and documented. It's not like vaccines were invented last week.
My only concern overall with any vaccine is when it's only at 95%.
That it's actually a very high level of effectiveness.
Well, but anything that's higher than 5% issues is no longer statistically significant. And so I don't, from a statistical standpoint, from looking at the science, right?
It could
The
be
p
100 or
value,
90%.
no, it needs to be higher than 95%, right? And that's why they're always like at 95.5.
No. It depends on the data set that you're modeling.
No, p value.
P-value.
Yeah. So if we're looking at the p value, it becomes statistically significant when it's less than 5%, regardless of whatever your population set is. So now again, when we look at a vaccine, I just go, why are they all around this? Like 5% is a big number. Like if it's not going to work in 5% of the United States, what is that's a lot of people that it's going to work at. I don't know what's the
Well, you bring up a very good point.
I've had a couple of drinks here, so let's go with 5% of 350 million.
Yeah, there's something bound to happen to those people.
Yeah, that's 17.5 million people that it's not going to work well with. That's a lot of people.
Well, I don't think so. Statistically speaking, there is a sampling error that you're mentioning.
Oh, yeah, there's also a sample error. Sure. Right.
The sampling error, as you know, when we go to do a vote recount, they'll find out that the vote recount by hand.
Thanks, Mike. You just brought up the vote, and now I'm not going to be able to promote this particular episode because people are going to think we're talking about the election.
I know. I think you mentioned this like 2 episodes ago, and that's why I had to bring it up. The recount, it's always off a little bit, and it's because there's human error in the sampling versus computer. And it's not because there was some, votes. And it's a small margin. It's not like anything drastic.
Yeah, I think
there's a difference.
Gallup normally says like plus or minus 3%.
Yeah. But going back to the vaccine efficacy, all vaccines are about like 95%.
Yeah, right.
And you know what? Like the people who are getting the allergic reactions, they're the people who are allergic, I think, my opinion. I'm not a doctor. But I've heard that they are allergic to many things, and they know they are, and they carry around a EpiPen because they're allergic to a lot of different things.
You're right, and I think this is a funny story. So, I had just turned 18 years old, and I got hit with a fastball in the back of in the lower ribs and cracked the ribs, and didn't know it. Immediately, I'm like, oh wow, that kind of hurt. I didn't know it until I stole second base and slid it head first, and I'm like, I couldn't get up, like I couldn't breathe. So I have to go to the hospital. They have to put in, I don't remember what it's called, but it's a dye in order to, when they do the MRI or whatever it is, to see if whether or not I had like any internal bleeding or something like that. But now that I'm 18, I have to sign the release form, and it said in there that, hey, like 1 in like 10,000 people will die from this. I'm like, what? I'm not signing this. No way. Not doing it. Not happening. Blah, 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 blah. And then the nurse comes in and she's like, hey, are you allergic to shellfish? No, not at all. She goes, then it's not even it's like not going to happen because it's a radioactive iodine, essentially, to be able to glow. And the only way you're going to have, it's 1 in 10,000 people that are, whatever, my numbers could be off.
Yeah, like in the general population.
Who are allergic to shellfish, it's 1 in 10,000, whatever that number was.
But then if you're in that tier of the shellfish, it increases. Yeah.
Right. And so a lot of people that are having reactions are because of not the vaccine itself directly, it's the transport mechanism of the vaccine that people have issues with. And as you said, they already had something else. Like people that have a ton of allergies, I feel bad.
I know. I want to read the pandemic book of like the Spanish flu, 1918. And I'm amazed by it because they've ran into some issues of lethality because they didn't know the right proper dosing of Tylenol. And they were administering way too much Tylenol, and people were dying from that. And I'm thinking, like, what will people read about us, 100 years from now, 102 years? And I hope it's not people are dying because they refuse to take a vaccine. I really do think, nothing's foolproof, but I'd rather take my chances with the vaccine than emerging variants of COVID-19.
Yeah,
And I know people probably differ opinion on that. That's all right.
I'm sure they do. That's why I just said for me,
Yeah.
I'm not against taking it. I want to wait as long as I can to make sure that those that are at higher risk have been taken care
Oh
of.
yeah, exactly.
Right?
And you know what? I hope grocery store workers get it before I do, and I hope a lot of other people get it before I
Well,
do.
and here's the thing: like I could get it right now
That's all right.
because I work in critical infrastructure. It's considered essential, so I could go and get it. I'm not, and again, not because I don't that I'm against the vaccine.
Yeah.
It's because I'm working from home. I am isolated. I'm socially distanced. I wear a mask. I'm not going off and putting myself at additional risks as those that are actually at a grocery store.
So when is your time? When do you know? How do you know?
How do I know? I'm going to play it like I do the stock market.
Oh no.
No.
You're gonna check the Reddit.
I'm gonna check the Reddit string. I haven't thought about just yet as to the actual time as to when. I look at the people that I'm going to wind up needing to be around, and in the event that I think that I could be putting the people I am around often at risk, will increase my desire to get the vaccine sooner rather than later.
I think there's gonna be more than that. So I think there's gonna be two things that emerge pretty soon. One is pressure from employers to show that you're vaccinated and to travel, immunization passports to say you can only travel unless you could show proof of vaccination. I think there will eventually be some pressure somewhere that's going to.
Yeah, I don't know that the employer part is more likely to happen before that travel visa inside the United States, just because of
American Airlines is already creating a standard for it.
Yeah, that's different. But the New York can't prevent me from driving there.
True, I air quoted this. I think it's going to be sort of like a opt-in thing.
Companies like American Airlines,
but still pressure.
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely still pressure. Right. So the companies are going to, because what they are worried about, and it's not, and I'll be to me, what I believe to be the honest truth in this matter is that it's not that these corporations are doing it because they think it's the right thing. They're doing it to reduce liability.
Oh, it's profit motive.
They don't.
Can't blame on that,
they don't. Right. They don't want to be sued saying, "Oh, well, you got this because of blah blah blah." As a matter of fact, I would go so far as to say, if someone needs to travel right now, traveling by air is the safest thing. The ventilation in those airplanes today is, they stepped up their game quickly.
We are learning. It does come down to air ventilation is the biggest thing, preventing the spread.
Yes, you want that air blowing right on you. Because that is clean air coming out of there.
I was always turning on the air vent anyways, the airplane, and just blowing it straight on me, getting the cone of silence, preventing any germs coming in.
Yeah, but I absolutely. So again, for me, because I am basically a remote employee at this point, I wouldn't be forced. However, those employees that we have that are on the front line, they likely would.
Yeah. And I have 3 children, and they each go to their own separate daycare or preschool based on their ages. And last year when I only had 2, I got a new cold or flu every other week, and actually had 2 at the same time. So
you had 2 colds at the same time, or a cold and a flu at the same time?
I don't know. It was actually probably about as bad as COVID, or maybe a little bit worse. Last year about this time.
Did you also have the swine flu?
I may have had every kind of flu, and I know I call it the man flu because I could just get significantly worse off than anyone else in the family, and no one believes me
You
that
know
I'm
what your
sick.
blood type is? Is it
I
AB?
think it was B. Yeah.
B? B positive tends to be relatively bad when it comes to, which is really quite funny because everyone's like, "Oh, well, can you? I'm B positive. Like I'm always positive."
That might be it.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true or
I
how
thought it was
true that
just
is, but
3 children intermixing germs from 3 different locations
oh yeah,
getting me.
it's anyway, so getting back to the aspect as to when, um, unless I have pressure from an employer or something along those lines, I would speed it up. But again, if what I believe to be all at risk groups are 100% covered or 99% covered, then I would be looking to get. I don't want to take away from those that I feel need it more than what I do today. That's really what it comes down to for me.
And I hope you're right. It's one of these things where when you look about the 1918 flu, there was the second wave and a third wave, and I don't really think we're truly in that second wave just yet. I think more is to come in terms of emerging versions of this virus, and who knows how much worse it can get. And usually the second wave is significantly worse.
Yeah,
Worse.
and this is the thing that I'm even more worried about overall, and I don't get into the conspiracy, so to speak, that China is developing, biological warfare to take out the entire West. Like I'm not. That would be foolish on their part, since we are their, we're where they get all their cheese from, right? We're the number one consumer in the world.
Right.
They're not looking to get rid of us. Like so,
Yeah.
I don't buy into that. But what I do know is that it's roughly every 3 to 4 years a new COVID virus hits the world.
Or coronavirus, yeah.
Yeah, right. Sorry, yeah, coronavirus. Well, is there going so? Swine flu was not a SARS variant. Was avian flu a SARS variant? Was that SARS one? Or was
But
avian flu?
we had SARS 1 and 2, right? Like
Well, this is
in
SARS
2000s.
2.
Okay.
Yeah, COVID. We're calling COVID is
Is it SARS 2?
SARS 2. So what I don't know is okay, is there whatever swine flu was, whatever avian flu was?
Avian.
I think avian was H1N1, so I don't think that's
Yeah.
SARS. Could be completely wrong, but I wonder. Okay, is there going to be a SARS 3 next, or is there going to be a swine 2 or an avian 2?
Right.
There's going to be something, and it seems to that like this SARS 2 being so much more impactful. Well, how do we compare SARS 1 from swine flu and avian flu? Like, which one of those were more impactful?
Yeah.
What
how
happened?
virulent.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm worried
It's
about
almost.
what's next. That's really.
I know it's like CVS scoring and like, hey, like how will this spread and what's the impact?
Yeah, which is very much so why I have been spending a lot of time on how I can become a healthier and have better immune response to anything.
I think that was the missed message 12 months ago that should have been put out there. To best prepare yourself for this, exercise, sleep right, eat well. I'll tell you what, when I had COVID, you definitely feel like you can't breathe. And I am working out consistently now, and all cardio. I do not want to go back through that.
Are you running, or because you're getting old, like you really shouldn't be running so much at your age?
Well, I appreciate that. I do have a big birthday coming up.
You're turning 50, right?
60. I mean, look, no one's impressed when you lower the number. They're always impressed when you increase it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with that. I'm doing a little bit of everything. It's the treadmill. I have a smart bike trainer. It's not Peloton.
Which one you got?
A Zwift, Zwift.
Oh yeah. So it's literally like as if you were going to be truly biking because you get to shift gears and all that kind of stuff, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And then as you go up a hill, it will increase the intensity.
How much does that
pressure.
cost?
It's not that much. So you have your regular bike that you use. So you probably have a bike somewhere, and you buy what's known as a smart trainer, and then you hook it up either to your laptop, your PC, your Apple TV, your iPad, and you just have like the smart trainer has like a Bluetooth interface on it. The smart trainer, you can get one, I guess, for $200. You could pay $2,000 if you wanted to simulate like pebbles on the road as you're going through and actually do an incline. Yeah. So it's pretty intense. And what I like about it is you can race other people. And the best thing about it is you race against yourself the day before. So you can say,
nice.
how did I do the day before?
That fits right well into what we were just talking about with Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Am I better tomorrow than I was yesterday?
It's a lifestyle.
It's awesome. Well, my friend, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. It was good talking with you.
Anytime. My pleasure.
Glad you and the family are doing well. We'll have to do this again soon.
We will. Take care.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks for stopping in. Don't forget to subscribe, all that kind of fun stuff. If you have different topics you would like to talk about, let me know. Take care.
Take care. Bye.